Hello everybody, and welcome back to Mont Utiger. Last episode, we built the beginnings of the themed land with these two buildings, which will house the land's main gift shop. But that's enough said about the last episode. Let's get to this one. For the Utiger Alpine Railway, I had the idea that it was an old coal-powered engine that brought supplies up to the farmers who lived in Mont Utiger's shadow. Problematically, my only real experience with trains is Thomas and the Tank Engine, along with his friends. And that doesn't exactly fit the theme I'm going for with this ride. So I needed to look elsewhere. My first search was for Swiss Alpine steam trains, and I found this photo of a SBB A3/5, or at least that's what ChatGPT told me it was called. And I imagined this train lumbering up the steep cliffs and the bridges of Mont Utiger, with its large stacks and its pretty classic train shape. But I didn't want this dark black color. So I continued searching and I found this train. And I really liked how it had this lighter blue color. It was a little more whimsical, a little more colorful, and it kind of added a bit of a pop of color to the side of the mountain. With the engine decided on, I still needed the rest of the cars. So I began looking for old storage cars that were on railways, normally in America and Canada, as that's what I know best. And I found these two old railway cars that were used for the transportation of livestock. And I really liked how they looked, so I molded them to fit my needs. And with inspiration found, it's time to get started on the coaster train. Well, starting this train, I obviously had my inspiration ready. I knew I wanted this old, kind of steam-powered, coal-powered engine. I wanted it to be colorful, whimsical. I wanted it to just kind of fit into the story of the land I was building. But what is that story? So, Mont Utiger is this mountain in the Swiss Alps. Completely made up, it's my own design, at least as far as I know. I don't believe there's anything named Mont Utiger in the Alps, but correct me if I'm wrong. And it's this tall, snow-capped mountain, and there's legends from the people who lived there in probably the medieval kind of era of time that it was inhabited by mountain spirits, and you could give them an offering and they'd protect your cattle and your crops. And this train was built in probably the early 1900s to get to the top of, I guess where a base camp would be kind of thing, or near to the top of the mountain, where the farmers could have supplies brought up and not have to trek all the way up and down the mountain every time. And it was funded by Arthur Utiger, and he wanted to be the first one to summit this mountain. And in my kind of story, it has been tried before, but people just hadn't made it, and Arthur Utiger was the first person. So that's why the mountain is named Mont Utiger, as he was the first one to summit it. Along with the town, it is also called Mont Utiger, named after him, as he brought a lot of fame to the town, as in my kind of headcanon, this is a very famous mountain. It's it's like a big challenge to climb it. So people would use this train to kind of get near-ish to the top. But kind of continuing along with it, I guess I can get back to what I'm building really quick. I'm working on the engine right now that you saw in the inspiration before. I really enjoy these support pieces and building them, not supports, because building supports is awful. But I like how they go down to 10% without having to actually have the scaling mod. Same with the support pieces that I'm using as the wood, which I believe are called the hoarding support beams. And they are probably one of, if my not favorite pieces in the game. They're just so useful. You can use them for pretty much anything you want. But you can kind of see how I keep going back to this front car. I'm never sure if I like how long it is, how big it is, if it's far enough out, not far enough out, and this is actually, I believe, my 4th or 5th iteration of the very front engine part. And I just really wanted to make sure it actually looked like a train and was long enough. You could see how I moved it out. That's because beforehand I had it even farther out and then deleted it because it looked quite awful, to be frank. But this time I kind of brought it out to a middle point, and I had to make sure that it didn't clip into the track anywhere. If I pushed it too far out, it would clip into track, I believe, about halfway through, just very barely, but it would also look quite strange going around the layout of the actual ride. But kind of going through, I wanted to add a lot of small details, as this is actually the first train I built in the game, and I built it, I'm a bad YouTuber, I built this train probably 5 months ago. It's been done for a very, very long time, but I guess now people can finally get to see it. But I'm quite happy with how it actually turns out, especially just this front engine. It's currently without color, but that's soon to change, as well as these smokestacks. I messed around with this smokestack probably 10 times. I made it taller, shorter, added more detail, added less detail. I actually had a smoke emitter in there for a while, which I might add back. I didn't mind it, but it's just kind of, it was a lot of little finicking. But I used the apples from the, I want to say the Greek and ancient Rome kind of pack that came with the base game to create some coal, as they're really recolorable, and probably one of my favorite little detail pieces, as they can also be used for snow and other little things, since they're just so small. But I kind of wanted to make sure that this train wasn't just flat. That was my biggest worry building it. It was just too flat. So I added the kind of cross bracing. I took inspiration from like mine cars that are in my area. And now, there we go. Now I'm actually starting to add the color that I was talking about, how I wanted it to actually have some color, be a little more whimsical, and it's almost even a little bit inspired by Thomas the Tank Engine, as, you know, that's my big know-how on trains, which is very limited, but it's kind of just the colors. I chose a blue, there's a green, there's a purple, and there's a red. And I just really enjoyed building all of the little small details and making each train kind of feel like its own while not feeling too much like its own thing. I also had to cover up, it was a lot of work to cover up this car. There was a lot of little things that just kind of stuck out in odd angles, or having to cover up the lights on the front, or there's little like speakers and things like that, and it was just quite time consuming and awkward to make it properly fit my theme and feel like it was truly designed for this ride and not just a cover-up of the train car. But it's probably, I'm quite chuffed with it. It's definitely really fits how I want it to. I used like lots of little pieces. The only problem is with how many pieces it is it's laggy sometimes when it goes around, but that's okay. I can live with it, because it looks so good, and it's also gotten better with the updates since I built this. It's actually quite reasonable for pieces now. But with the engine coming up to a close, finishing up with the last little bit of wood details, and with our engine looking all spick and span, let's have a closer look. Well, here we are in the game, and I am super happy with how this first engine has turned out. It looks exactly how I imagined it, exactly how I wanted it to look, and pretty much perfect in my mind. Of course, there's a couple little things that still need to be fixed, but oh well, they can be fixed. But I'm super happy with it. I love all the little details I've put in, all of the little parts of depth, all of the little things you can see. Like this one right there. Each car is going to have its own different number, so this is 1, then there's 2, 3, and 4, as there's 4 trains that run. As well, there's the little coal hatch and a little speedometer. And I imagine that this ride would have the speedometer kind of wiggle back and forth, either like it's malfunctioning or it actually goes as fast as the ride actually is. So if the ride's going 40 kilometers an hour, it shows that it's going 40 kilometers an hour. And I think that's just a super fun little detail you could have. As well, there's the little coal apples, which are probably one of my favorite pieces in the game. I think I probably sound a bit like a broken record, but that's okay. Overall, I am super happy with how this came out. We still have the rest of the train to finish, so let's get a move on. And here it is, the last part of our custom trains. This is where the storage cars would be. It's where the cattle might be held, the food, the little details like that that really just make the story of this land pop. And they're not thrown at your face, but you definitely can kind of understand that they're there. And I want to replicate the front car and its kind of texture, but more with the wood. I want the front to be the color and the back to be the more sort of down low kind of thing, but it's still there and it still adds to the actual ride. And I have to say, this train builder is really, really nice. I guess I'm quite late to say that, I guess, but it's just such a fun experience. It makes it just look so much better than you could do in the first game. But you could see me kind of toying around with maybe having the storage car first, but then I was kind of thinking about it, and having the coal be the closest car to the engine just made the most sense. It meant they could get the coal it needed to run up and down this big peak to service the farms. But I'm really just kind of playing around with all of the pieces. It's a lot of the pieces I've used in the buildings in the back as well. It's a lot of this hoarding primary beam and this other piece of wood that I believe it's called the support beam, but I could be wrong, so correct me if I am. But I also want to make these trains feel realistic, so I want to cover up as much of them as I can. So I'm going back and I'm tweaking a little bit of each car, making sure it all looks exactly how I want it to. But it doesn't have to be perfect. I don't need to be a perfectionist to have this look how I want it to. And as well, I want to make sure that it's not just the same design as the front car. All of these back three cars have the same exterior design, of course, but that's just for a little bit of continuity. But the front engine can be a little special. But yeah, so I'm just really working on covering up the parts that are seen, the parts that are actually used. So I'm not bothering with the little triangle in the front. I just colored it black because it blends in with the shadow, and that's all it really needs to be. But with like the sidecar, rather than having almost the carbon fiber look, I wanted it to be just a smooth metal, so I used the support beams to cover it up. And I guess I don't really have much more to say about these cars. They're pretty simple, and I kind of touch on base on the last little bits I want to talk about in the real-time section, which, spoiler alert, is next. But I'd love to hear your opinions on this style of editing. It's a lot more work than I normally do. It's a little more scripted, a little more high effort than just what I used to do. And if you want me to keep doing this sort of style, just let me know and I'd be quite happy to, as it's a little more work, but it's a lot more rewarding, I think. It really makes, at least I think, this video a little more special. And as well, if you have any ideas for what could be in this park or inspiration, you can shoot me a message on my Discord, which is linked in the description, or in any of the Discord chats. I'm pretty much in all of them. It's not hard to find me. Or if you notice anything that's not quite realistic and could be worked on or anything like that, I want to try and make this as realistic as possible for the scale it's at. I do believe I may have gone a little bit big with this coaster, but I can live with that. I think it's still really quite a fun layout and really does everything I want it to for being a Expedition Everest inspired coaster. But I'm really just putting on the last finishing touches right now. The final little back headboards, so it's not just a metallic black square. Just doing the last little bit of framing. It really is, it's come together exactly how I pictured it in my head when I started building this. And little side note, this was all built on my stream over at twitch.tv/Strake. I try to stream. That's about it. I post my schedule in my Discord as well, so you can come check it out there and come and say hi. But yeah, I'll let you with the last couple seconds of this recording before we jump to the real-time section. Well, let's see the finished product. And here is the finished train. I went with a purple for the last color instead of pink. I just kind of think it fit a little bit better. But you can kind of see all the little details, the little hatching with the beams, the number 4 on this one as it's the 4th train. It would, on quieter days, it would be taken off the track. But yeah, as we look at the cars, we have the feed car, where all the feed for the animals would be kept in the little front right there. Then we have the storage car, so this would be like building supplies, so wood and things along that. And then we also have the coal car, which would be the fuel for the train. And I just really thought that this encapsulates my theme really well, and it really fits the idea of an Alpine railroad that is there to service the people who live up in the mountains. And I'm overall quite happy with it. But moving on to the rest of them, we can see the red train. This is number 3. It's very similar. It's the same train, just has a different front car as the rest of them do as well. Then there's also the green one, which I quite like how it looks. I think the green just really it might be my favorite one. It's definitely the green or the purple. And then here's the blue one, which is the one you saw me working on. But yeah, let's get to the cinematics.